Thank you guys for having me here. I don't know, did any of you guys see me speak last year? Anyone? Cool. So, obviously I said something right because Jules asked me to come back. So, yeah, thanks for having me here. Last time I spoke about sleep and more about how stress impacts sleep. And this time I'm going to be looking at gut. And again, there's a lot of talk about gut health. There's a lot of talk about your gut microbiome and what we can do to improve our gut health, but we're going to focus on signs that your gut isn't functioning as effectively as it could do. And first off though, I want you to just sit back and just close your eyes. I want you just to think of just being in this super peaceful environment. Just think about this, you're just sitting there and you're kind of floating. And every single thing you ever need will be provided for you. Every nutrient, every bit of oxygen, you will never have to pay a bill in your life. You're not going to have to worry about your VAT return. You're not going to have to, unfortunately, hire a financial advisor or anything like that, because everything is going to be working and everything is going to be provided for you. So just sit there and feel that relaxation. Now I want you to just think about what would happen if suddenly, all of a sudden, there was a light, and you're getting pulled towards that light. You have no choice but to go towards that light, and then after all that peacefulness, there's loads and loads of noise. There's people screaming, there's beeping, the light gets brighter and brighter and brighter, and all of a sudden, you're gasping for air. So you scream out, and you just, all that nutrients, you now have to get them yourself. That is the most stressful moment of your life. It's called being born. And we've already been through that. So if we look further down the line, any other stress we go through, it's not going to compare to being in a womb for 9 months where every single thing is being provided for us. And all of a sudden we have to live. And that's kind of what I'm dealing with. The moment we're born up until now. Because that's what stress seems to have as an impact on our body. So, this is good, this isn't going to work. I'll use the D-pad. Right, so I'm Ollie Matthews, and I'm a nutritionist, a functional medicine doctor, and for people that don't know what that is, basically if we look at Western medicine, that is a model where we deal with sickness. And sickness is defined as that we're at this 25% of health. Well, we want to stop people getting from 100% health to that 25% and intervene before we need to rely on actual emergency medicine and so forth. I'm also a personal trainer, and I've been in the industry for nearly 20 years now. And I was this guy, this overweight, what's happening with this screen? I was asking to take a picture. Don't take a picture. We're still there? Right, we are still there. Yeah, I was this overweight DJ, went to music college, if anyone remembers Connected Wednesdays at Optic back in the day. And then I went into bodybuilding, I lost a lot of weight, and only then I actually started turning healthy. And I was saying to Scott down here that when I was competing in bodybuilding, I thought I was healthy, I was in this great shape, but I was suffering from disordered eating. It was obsessiveness. It wasn't the place to be. And since then, I last competed in 2012. I've started working with a lot of businesses and their staff. I've had professional athletes. You see Luke there, who was a rider in the Tour de France. Beverly Knight there. There's Rick Barker, who's Taylor Swift's manager. That these guys have started to come to me for some reason, like to help them with their health. This isn't even moving now. Is that changing? Yeah. I'm also author of a book called The One Day Body Upgrade. But one of the things that I said about last time is when we find out our why we actually want to do what we do, because I remember being in school, I had no idea of what I wanted to do. And then all of a sudden, when I was 15, I went through quite severe trauma that my dad passed away. And he was this guy that I looked up to, this role model, this guy that had everything in check, it seemed. He was someone that was sales manager at caravan parks and then started running caravan parks. He used to live away in like Colchester area, and he used to suffer with migraines. And so we could see there was stress on him that was happening over all the time. Sleep was an issue, all these things. And at 47 years old, I remember on the Monday, he texted me, he was on a course in Grantham, and he said, "Did you get your money?" Back in the day when we'd send like cash, when cash was a thing, we'd send it in the post. And he said, "Did you get your money?" That was the last text message I ever received from him. Because that night he was playing volleyball, like, as you do like, on courses and stuff, and got hit around the head, had a migraine, and then ended up having a stroke. And on the Wednesday, they said, he's going to be fine. But then suddenly there was a turn for the worst. His brain was starved of oxygen for 13 minutes. There was a blockage, and all of a sudden, we had to make the decision that Saturday night to turn off his life support machine. And that changed my life so quickly. But it wasn't until now, I'm 38, that I've realised that we can feel bad about the things that we've been through, or we can use them to move forward and help other people. So I really, really am super passionate about helping parents, helping men, helping women not die before their time, making sure they can see their children grow old, making sure so they can walk their daughters down the aisle, all these things, and take them to that place where they can actually just feel good, finally. So today we're going to have a look through why good gut health is so important, what your digestive system should actually be doing, what we can do when things go wrong, and also like how you can test for certain issues when it comes to your gut, and some tips for good digestion and what to do next. So when we look at digestive problems, I'm sure a lot of people here know what it's like to be bloated. You have food, like you feel tired because of something that you've eaten, but you just don't know what it is. Well, with digestion, we have to look at, if we have good digestion, we're going to absorb nutrients better, which means we're going to have better energy, we're going to have better longevity, we're going to have a higher chance of good physical and mental health. Now, I don't know what's going on with this computer, but there we go. If we have poor nutrient consumption, so if the food we have on our plate hasn't got good nutrients in it, then that can lead to bloating. And as a result, we have high inflammation levels, and our gut can be suffering from infections. We have high build-up of toxins, we're not able to detoxify, which can then mean lowered productivity, lowered moods, and more chance of hormone issues and health problems. And then, when we're stressed, this can make things worse. Because when we're stressed, I'm sure we've all heard this old saying about running away from a lion. But we don't have to run away from a lion nowadays, but our ancestors did. And when people were running away from a lion, they would end up, their blood would come from their digestive system, come from their reproductive organs, go into their limbs. It would then make our vision clearer, our brain more alert, and we would just want to be surviving. Your blood would have more chance of clotting, because if that lion bit you and you ended up having your arm being ripped off, there's more chance of survival if you can clot. All these things for survival. Now, the problem is we're not getting chased by lions, hopefully, especially not in Norwich anyway. We're not getting chased by lions every single day. But psychologically, our brains are wired for the same stress state, the same high state of high cortisol, of high adrenaline, that our ancestors used to be over and over again. Now, if we can improve the ability for our body to tolerate stress, from physical stress, if we think about physical stress as too much exercise, too little exercise, physical stress from the food we eat, from the environment, mold exposure, from toxins and all these different things that we get exposed to every single day, diesel fumes. We look at mental stress, the psychological stress, and emotional stress in relationships, financial stress that we deal with a lot. All these things can be stressful, and as a result, it can impact your digestion. Now, your digestion is going to show you if there's an issue. And if we listen to our body, if we all listen to our body, we would see where we can improve our health. I always say to people, I've said it last time I was here, is that when I speak with clients, I always ask them, what's one thing you can add to your life today that will improve your health? everyone knows one thing. We also know one thing we can take away from our life today, which will improve our health. Even myself, I know things that can be improved. But if you are someone who fails to chew your food properly, if you are someone, I deal with a lot of people suffering from bad breath, that we think, oh, we'll just clean our teeth more, or we'll chew some gum, or we'll have some mouthwash. Like, something, these things can actually be more toxic. But if your breath is bad, that's a sign of something potentially like candida overgrowth or SIBO, something going on deeper in, which I touch on further on into the presentation. If you are someone who gets a burning sensation in your stomach, probably one of the most common things I deal with, which then impacts hormones as a result, is acid reflux. It's very, very common. And the way the Western medicine world seems to deal with it actually makes things worse. So if you're regularly using indigestion tablets, if you have a feeling of fullness in your stomach, or you find it difficult to digest fatty foods, or you get diarrhea, constipation, you have hormone issues. These are all signs that you end up, like, your digestion is not where it should be to have optimal health. If you're constantly feeling nauseous, often having gas, like, a lot of these symptoms go into different things that we'll talk about further into the talk. But if you fail to go to the toilet at least once a day, there's a client that I used to work with, and she said, do you go to the toilet regularly? She said, yeah, every Wednesday. And that's not regular. It's consistent, but we need to be going to the toilet at least once a day, ideally every 16 hours or so. If you eat a lot more, then yes, you're going to be going more, but that's a way of our body to get rid of toxins. So if we're not going to the toilet, those toxins are going to then just get reabsorbed into the body, which can then cause harm on hormones, on our brain function, on our gut function, all the different systems within the body. And if you're constantly tired after meals, there are signs that there's some work that can be done on your digestion, potentially with glucose management and so forth. Now, why do we need stomach acid? Do you have enough? Well, the right amount of stomach acid, we need acid in our stomach to break down the proteins in our food, and also to signal other digestive enzymes to then digest carbohydrates and fats. And it then helps us to absorb different minerals and the things our body needs to thrive and to actually live day to day. And it's also an important part of your immune system, that it provides a barrier, a defensive portion to stop harmful bacteria and other infections from just getting uptaken into the body. So there are many signs, I won't go through each one, but we can see the signs that come through with stomach acid insufficiency, and there are conditions that get linked with stomach acid insufficiency. Like asthma has been linked with problems with your stomach acid, thyroid issues, like arthritis, psoriasis, sleep and insomnia issues. All these have been linked because if we don't have the right stomach acid, if we don't have good levels of stomach acid, we're not going to be able to absorb the food. And that's the raw materials coming into our body. We're then going to have problems there. And lansoprazole is one of my pet peeves. Just the way, and I guarantee there's going to be some people here that have been prescribed lansoprazole. This is a medication for high stomach acid. This is a medication that you have acid reflux. Most doctors in the Western medicine world, in that model of medicine, will say you need lansoprazole. Now, one of the reasons that reflux happens is that you have low stomach acid. And you have this food comes into your stomach, and stress stops your cells being able to produce this stomach acid, so we can't then digest this food. So the food sits in our stomach and essentially goes rancid, which is a gross thing to think about, but it goes rancid and this gas comes back. At the same time, we have this little doorway called our esophageal sphincter in our esophagus, which is basically like the doorway to the gut, to the stomach. And that then gets warped. If you imagine a door, like I live in an old house and some of our doors don't really fit too well, like they're a little bit warped where they've been there for 100 odd years. And you imagine that, like, the more information, the more stress we go through, that door gets warped. And all of a sudden, when we're in certain positions, then opens up and this gas, this reflux comes through. So we have these medications, these proton pump inhibitors, lansoprazole being one of them, they make the symptom go. So we don't feel that. But that already low level of stomach acid, which is vital for digesting our food, for getting nutrients that we need to create good hormones, to create good brain health, to help us sleep, to help us regenerate and recharge, we're then getting less of that stomach acid. So the symptom goes, but further down the line, we get malabsorption problems. We absorb less and less nutrients, and hormone issues can happen. So how do we actually sort this? We have to look at why stomach acid isn't being produced. And that is usually down to stress. Now, in one case now, I studied under a doctor called Tatis Karazian, who's a Harvard lecturer, Harvard doctor, and you can imagine there's hundreds of people that have studied under him. And in our masterminds, when we spoke about it, that in all the years that he's been a doctor and all the clients that I've worked with, that there's only ever been one case study that has actually shown that reflux has been caused by high stomach acid. And you can imagine, he's worked with thousands of patients in his network, thousands of people, and that was medically induced. So if that's the case, like, if we can deal with stress, we can get the body creating the things it needs to create to actually be able to live in a much better state of low stress and be optimized in health. So looking into some of the symptoms, as we said, with acid reflux, like IBS, again, like it's something which is just diagnosed more as a group of symptoms, rather than actually pinpointing exactly what is causing it. Like, what is making this gut kind of bloat out, and then suddenly you need to run to the toilet, and then you don't go for days. Like, what is causing these gut issues? These are things that get worse when we're stressed. And if we can pinpoint what is actually causing it, we can get to that root cause. Is it starting in the gut? Is it our brain function? Are we getting exposed to mold? But I'm very, very sensitive to mold, and I usually get migraines. If I'm in a room with mold and I'm stressed out, chances are I'll have migraines. But we don't really look deeper into what is actually going on with that sensitivity there. And again, when we look at sensitivities, if there's inflammation in our body, if foods that we have are causing intolerances, then we're not going to digest effectively. We're going to cause more inflammation. And if we look at food intolerances, about 45% of people struggle with food intolerances. So nearly half of the Western population struggle with some kind of food intolerance. Now, what happens there is that creates this kind of low-grade inflammation. So I speak to people and they say, I'm okay when I have a little bit of milk, so I'll have a little bit of dairy, a little bit of milk, or a little bit of gluten, I'm okay. If I have a lot, I feel horrible. Well, even if you're having a little, your body is still going to be reacting to it. It's just not as severe that you're going to see it at the forefront. But if you think about, like, if there's that constant little tap, like, eventually it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And the problem that we see with food intolerances is that pretty much every single test tests for raw food rather than cooked foods. So we have to get the right sort of intolerance test in order to look at what is going on. So symptoms of intolerances of food is weight not shifting, migraines, ear infections, eczema. Like, there's a lot of things, again, that are going to show up because of a reaction with a foreign object we're putting into our body. But there's a difference between allergy and intolerance. So that when you have an allergy to food, people say I'm allergic to certain food. Most people aren't allergic to food. You're not going to have an anaphylactic shock when it comes to having this food. That can be deadly. But when you have an intolerance, you're going to have this reaction, which can be 2-3 hours after eating the food, up to 3 days. But this reaction is going to happen inside your body. So we end up that we find it hard to see this food reaction, what is causing this food. So as a result, what happens is that we keep eating the food. So we go to the doctors and they say, you haven't got gluten intolerance or anything like that. But then they'll only test for one certain form of gluten when there's 32 reactions that we can have with gluten. So we have to look at, like, what is actually causing these intolerances. And as a result, with an allergy, you have to take the food out completely. That food could kill you. With an intolerance, we need to remove that food, fix the gut, and then the goal that I have with clients is like, yes, like, I don't drink alcohol. Like, there's nothing in my eyes which is good about alcohol, but I don't want people to just cut out alcohol. I don't want them to cut out gluten. I want them to get to a point where they can have that food in moderation and enjoy it without a negative reaction on their body. And I'll skip through it with dysbiosis, I'm just aware of the time side of things, but with dysbiosis, it's a reaction in the body with an imbalance of the bacteria, which again, it's linked with stress, it's linked with alcohol, it's linked with high sugar diets. All these things basically create toxic bacteria called lipopolysaccharides, LPS, which can disrupt hormone activity, can create new fat cells, and can then also increase a thing called insulin resistance. We see more cases of PCOS in females, we see more cases of diabetes, all as a result of your gut health and not being where it needs to be. And again, symptoms of dysbiosis, they're very, very much, but these symptoms all very cross over a lot. The diarrhea, the constipation, the bloatedness, the cramping, the bad breath, the fatigue, all these things are definitely things that cross over in all the different symptoms that come along, or in the conditions that come along. Now, one thing that I've worked with a lot of people recently is candida, which there's a problem with candida. When we look at the symptoms, is that anyone here feel they're addicted to sugar at all? So, when we have something like candida, yeast overgrowth, it thrives off of sugar. The thing we need to stop in order to improve candida overgrowth is a lot of sugar. When we stop that sugar, that's going to be shouting at you, I want some sugar, I want some sugar. So that is literally going to make you crave more and more sugar. So we need to make sure that we slowly get people to a place where their gut is being healed, is being fixed, it's got the right nutrients, so we can pull back the fuel for like the problems that are going on, and then we can heal the gut as a result. There's small intestine bacterial overgrowth, so overgrowth of the small intestine, which very much, in order to test for this, we need to do a breath test. And we test the gas that's going on in our stomach, and basically have some sugar, test for 2 hours, and it's very, very common to have. And I've only just started seeing this being tested for on the NHS, and then given antibiotics to kill this bacteria and the problems that have been happening. And if anyone has ever suffered from SIBO in here, you're much more likely to suffer from SIBO if you've had symptoms of IBS. Like 80% of people that suffer with IBS have SIBO. People that drink alcohol regularly, like, it doesn't have to be heavy. With women, like drinking like 2 days a week, or with men 3 days a week with 1 or 2 drinks, like it doesn't have to be many drinks. Like most of us would drink more than that. I know I used to when I did drink. Have low stomach acid. So if someone's got problems with IBS, they're drinking alcohol, they're then taking lansoprazole, and they've got poor blood glucose management. Like, these are all things that are going to link with problems further down with regards to SIBO, small intestine overgrowth, and things, autoimmune conditions as well. So how do we actually test for digestive problems? So we have food intolerance testing, and a different actual blood test for intolerance testing called IgG tests. The only test which I actually use with clients is a test by a lab called Cyrex Labs, a test called the Array 10, which tests for both raw and cooked proteins, as I said. Most tests, like pretty much every single test, will only test raw food, and I don't know about you guys, but I like to cook my food like when I eat it. It seems to taste better. Stool analysis, doing things like gastrointestinal maps, breath tests, as I've said, for SIBO. You can test for gluten and wheat sensitivity, you can test for leaky guts. But essentially, looking at symptoms, looking at the signs your body is actually giving you, oh, I bloat when I have bread, well, let's stop eating bread then. Like, there are things that I would look at doing, take that out for a while, see the foods, see you start to feel better, and then slowly add it in again. So, we've got a couple of things that we can do in order to improve our digestion. So we can look at having a cup of hot water or ginger tea before meals to help stimulate digestion. A thing that I do with clients is also have an apple cider vinegar challenge. So having 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar before you on an empty stomach, and see if you have a burning sensation. Now, if you do have a burning sensation, have some water, because that will just dilute it and that sensation will go. It shouldn't be so extreme that it's ridiculously painful. Unless you've got stomach ulcers or anything like that, don't do it then. If you do have that burning sensation, that tells us that there's something going on with the stomach lining, so we have to look at other routes to fix it, and then try it again in a couple of months. Now, thinking about your food before you eat it is something which is very, very powerful, because if we think about this process we're in, we go on our phone, we go on Deliveroo or Uber Eats or whatever it is, and we click to order something, and then half an hour later it's out the door. We're not really processing this food and thinking about our food enough. If we can cook our food, again, easier said than done for a lot of people with our schedules, we can produce our food. If we can prepare our food, we're going to start to produce saliva, we'll start to produce more digestive enzymes to break down that food. That is going to help you with actually being able to digest your food further down in your gut, making sure you're chewing your food properly, like making sure you sit up at the table. There was a time, like a couple of years ago, we didn't even have a kitchen table. We would literally just be on the sofa with trays, like eating our food, and my digestion was not great at that time. And walking after eating is something, again, which can help you with lowering your blood sugar levels and improving digestion. So what we want to make sure as well is that we don't eat on the go, or when you're stressed out. There's a book by Robert Sapolsky called Behave, and that book says, it's studying there, that if you eat where you pay your bills and it's deemed to be stressful, that will lower the ability for your body to digest food and the ability to absorb the nutrients that we've got. And it's the quickest way to get heartburn. Don't be sitting there scrolling and eating and scrolling and eating and wondering why you're still feeling hungry when you've finished your food. That's one of the, we're just not going to chew the food effectively. We're going to then be like eating at our desk between emails and stuff. But take some time. As busy as our day is, take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to go out, go to wherever it is you have your food and just sit and eat and actually relax and do it. Drinking too much water as well at your meal can reduce your ability to digest food. So again, it's not to say don't drink fluids, like sip fluids, we need it sometimes to digest, but don't drink loads, drink away from your foods. And as I said, eat foods that you know don't make you bloat. Like, don't be going to eat the foods, as I said, that make you bloat. There's people that I've seen on social media talking about, I have these oats every morning and it makes me bloat. And they're influencers that are saying it's okay to bloat. Yeah, it is okay. Like, you want to bloat, then bloat. But if you honestly know something's making you bloat, and you don't like feeling bloated, stop having that food. Because your body is going to improve in how it functions, how you feel, how you sleep, how your brain works, your hormones, so much more. That's what I've got there. Now, there's a couple of guides that I've got. There's a checklist for guys called the Elite Testosterone Blueprints. You can check where your testosterone levels are. And also healthy, happy hormones guide, which is a bit more like for men and women to have a look at your hormone side of things. And if anyone wants to chat about health, then feel free to drop me a message on Instagram or LinkedIn, or go on the website and book in. We can absolutely chat there. Any questions at all? Oh.
You talk about the tests. I think that's the hardest thing, is trying to get tested for, if you've got issues, getting those tests. I mean, do you find mainly that you have to do that privately yourself, or should you be able to get that when you go to the GP?
As I said, like SIBO, I've just seen people get it on NHS, but a lot of doctors beforehand, they wouldn't even recognise that swarm test and bacterial overgrowth was a thing. And most of the time the testing has to be done privately. And it's not the cheapest thing. Like a GI map is like £250, £300 to do. That intolerance test that I recommend people do, not straight away because your immune system might be flaring up, that's about £500 to do. Plus you have to find where to get your blood drawn and then have to be able to interpret it afterwards. But that's why I would say first off is just take foods out that you know are reacting. If you think there's an intolerance or anything, take it out for a few weeks. I say with gluten, like, you can't be a little bit gluten-free. It's like being 90% pregnant. You either are or you aren't. That with gluten, like you either are gluten-free or you're not. You have to be 100% gluten-free to notice a difference. It can't be, oh, there was a brownie there, so I had a little bit of that. Then that can set you backwards. Like 4 or 5 weeks of being completely gluten-free, 100% gluten-free, which is hard. Like I've been gluten-free for years, and sometimes I will slip up. Forget to check when I go to restaurants and there's cross-contamination, all this sort of stuff. That's the only way to really see the difference, to then add it back in and feel if it's that exact thing.
Do you speak to your clients about the types of food that they're eating, seed oils and things like that?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to, we look at like seed oils are things which can cause inflammation, or we know about that, and we look at sweeteners and stuff, like all these foods that can cause inflammation. But my goal is to get them to the point where they feel really good. Now they may be at the point where they're eating 10 McDonald's a week. So if I said to them, cut out all seed oils, cut out all alcohol, all sweeteners, all this sort of stuff, it's not going to be realistic. So my goal is to say, right, let's get you to 8 McDonald's, and then 7 and 6 and so forth. So then they can then start, it's easier to make those choices. So I speak to them a lot about those sorts of foods, about when we talk about sleep, about what to do before bed, blue light, screen time, and all that sort of stuff. Air quality, as I said, about all those sorts of things. But every single person is an individual. Some people don't want to get to that point where every single thing has to be 100%. And most people will feel really good just doing like 70%. So it's finding out where that individual is.
Thank you, Ollie. I'm sure there's something there that resonated with everyone. At least one thing, I think the sugar addiction for myself, I try to counter that by not buying it, but as many late night trips to our local village co-op as a result of that. So hopefully everyone can take something from that